Travels of the Ellis Arbor is a TTRPG story set in the world of Bastion using the Vagrant Sun campaign setting. Tune into episode 48, Darkness. Treading past the veil and into the darkness beyond, Darian, Carpathian, Edward, and the spirit of Silas Marr entered into the dungeons of Carpathian. Naught but the suffering aroma and the density of stagnant air to guide them through this place of evil. If Nout was truly to be found within this dungeon, what hope did they have of his life being intact? For certain, Nout was a powerful arcanist with a myriad of tools in his possession. They'd come across countless dangers and fought against unimaginable foes. But alone, the crew weren't nearly as potent, fallible to an extent, and very much mortal. Lingering doubts as to the purpose of their travails accompanied the crew as they ventured forth. Perhaps success would be more in the eye of the beholder, if they could, indeed, navigate this pit of despair and find what remained of their companion. Perhaps there was still something they could do. Fear and doubt could not win if Darian had any hope of returning to the surface. The walls of the cavern were slick with filth, not of the remains of gore, but a slimy, pungent growth that was soft to the touch. It felt as if the blackened stone was melting away beneath his hand as the captain brushed past the diminishing chamber. Head to toe, it was barely enough space for the captain to stand, let alone the hulking form of Carpathian, hunched and stumbling behind. One useful impact of bringing a spirit through the dungeon corridors is that they, indeed, could not be snuffed out by the encroaching darkness. As they wandered, the spirit drifted aloft and emitted a soft blue light throughout the chamber. It seemed swallowed and unnatural, but it did allow the crew to see more than a few feet ahead of them. That was, of course, until the winding corridor began to open to a space beyond. They began to notice a change in the environment. Slowly and barely perceptible, the blue light of the spirit began to drain of its color, until all that remained were harsh whites and grays. The pungent aroma of the cave opening had been replaced with the express smell of mold, wet and slick, to accompany the filthy stone walls. But beyond their change of scenery, there was one thing that brought despair back to the surface. Beyond them was nothing. Not a glimpse of a path, nor a sign of a wall or ceiling. It was as if the dungeon simply gave way to the abyss. Even sound failed to reverberate through what should otherwise be a cavernous expanse. The trickling of stones in their footsteps seemed to hush, and the crunch of their boots felt as if they were on an open field, instead of a haunting den of evil. But still, scrying over the sheer precipice, Darian spied a staircase that headed down and deeper into the earth. What approach had they left but to follow this journey to its end? Even time began to pass away as each inching footstep was drawn out into a crawl. The soft dripping of water against the bedrock made the cavern feel as if it were a drained chasm, once holding a vast body of water. But as the staircase wound its way through the earth, the soft patter of water appeared to be more of that slimy material they'd felt upon the tunnel entrance. Edward slipped behind the captain, whispering under his breath, "I don't care to stay any longer than necessary, Captain. I know we might find Nout somewhere, but I can't help but feel like we're ill-equipped for this space. What is our plan? What happens if we're attacked on the staircase?" Darian stopped, taking a deep breath He knelt to Edward's level and looked sternly into his eyes.
I don't think any of us would have thought to delve into a pit of demons today. Nor could we have been any more prepared than if we did. All that matters is that Nout lays somewhere on the path ahead. Come, there is only one path behind. At the very least, we can't lose our way.
And so they pressed on, single-minded in their purpose of hope. Hope to find their friend, and hope to return by the path that they came. Against the oppressive quiet of the dungeon, the rattling breath of the spirit became more and more potent. Heavy, labored breaths as they flickered against the eternal black. They continued to drift in front of the crew, but Darian began to grow concerned as to the effects the Carpathian dungeons had on the sprite.
What is it you feel, spirit? Don't think we haven't noticed your change in disposition.
Coughing and spluttering began to clear as the voice of the spirit broke into verse.
Cold and dark, damp and wet, Carpathian, a grisly fate has met.
It continued as its soft grey light began to dance.
Demons of change, demons of fate, the darkness begins what the faceless forget. Rumors of shadow and silhouettes of three. One of the past and the present will flee, but one still remains in the caverns beyond.
Its voice turned to a whisper.
The demon of future, of souls it is fond.
As its final word drew out, the harsh cackles and whimsical verse began to echo. For the first time, the words of the sprite's incantation began to reverberate through the expanse, giving a sense of vacuous space beyond what the party could see. And then, the sounds of the darkness began to chirp. At first like a hum, soft and inconsistent. Building in intensity, a scratching and nattering began to accompany the hum. First it sounded like the spirit's voice, small and insignificant, until it began to roil and change, distorting and warping in an undulating tone. Deep and resonant, filling the vast hallways of the crypt. Until in one triumphant voice, the cackles stopped. The rocks shook, and the soft dripping sound of the cavern returned, and quiet filled the space once more. However, one other change appeared in their vision. Beyond the staircase and at the edge of a plateau, the crew spied the glimmers of lights. 3 lights, to be precise. The colorless torches began to sparkle like the reflection of glass, giving form to the floor beyond the staircase. And as they approached, the glimmer of these lights began to form a coherent silhouette. 3 lights, 3 crystals, the shape and size of which seemed intimately familiar. Embedded into a flat metallic surface, gemstones that glimmered in the reflection of the spirit's light. Arranged in a triangle pattern. Darian knew for certain what this was. And as he approached the crystals, the form of a reflective metal shield lay nestled in a pile of rubble. None other than Nout's enchanted floating device. So enamored by finding it, nestled in such a conspicuous place, Darian had failed to notice what the other members had. The sound of the chamber began to creep once again. As Darian approached the shield, Carpathian and Edward listened as the cackling, murmuring, whispering, and chittering began to build once more.
Halt your approach, Captain. It is almost certainly a trap.
So determined to find his companion, the captain failed to take heed of the wizard's warning. And as he approached, the harsh reality of what lay before him drew Darian further and further into his single-minded purpose. Accompanying the shield was a small, coddled form of a green-skinned creature. But before he could reach the silhouette, a voice, harsh and commanding, filled with a tenacity that filled the room.
Don't do it! Don't fall for its trap! What madness has encouraged you to follow me here?
And at this, the entire expanse, just beyond the darkness of their vision, began to twist and turn. Travels of the Ellis Arbor is made possible by the generous support of our subscribers, followers, and most notably, our patrons. Special thanks to new and existing patrons for our Moon, Wedge, Crown, and Hex tier subscriptions. Please subscribe, give a like or a comment, follow us on Twitter, and stay tuned for the next episode. Make sure to follow us here on YouTube, on Spotify, and on twitch.tv/lonomy. Don't forget, take care of each other.